Hello, and welcome to Chapter 3 for Macroeconomics, Demand, Supply, and Market Equilibrium. Alright, so in this chapter, the focus is on markets that are competitive, so this requires a large number of buyers and sellers acting independently. Now, a market is going to be an institution that brings together buyers and sellers. So you can have a local market, so this would be like your farmer's market. You can have a national market, so this would be like the US real estate market. You can have an international market, so this would be like the New York Stock Exchange, as this has companies on it that expand across about 45 countries. Now, price is going to be discovered in the interactions of buyers and sellers. Okay, so question one here: a market. I give you a chance to pause this and answer it. So the answer here is going to be C. So it is an institution that brings together buyers and sellers. All right, so starting with demand. So demand is going to be a schedule curve that shows the various amounts of a product that consumers are willing and able to purchase at each of a series of possible prices during a specified period of time. Now, consumers have to be willing and able to purchase a good, and we assume that the only factor that causes consumers to buy more or less is going to be the price. Now, it's going to be assumed that all the other factors that influence the amount that consumers will buy are going to be constant. Now, market demand is going to be derived by summoning the individual demand curves, and we'll see that here in a second. Now, law of demand is going to be other things equal. As price falls, then the quantity demanded rises, and as price rises, then the quantity demanded falls. So, as prices go up, people buy less things. As prices fall, people buy more things, right? So that's kind of like a Black Friday situation. So usually during Friday, quote unquote, price is lower. So when price is lower, more people buy. So if the prices of gasoline cars increase, then the quantity demanded for gas cars is going to decrease, and the demand for electric cars will then increase. Now, if the price of iPads decreases, then the quantity demanded will increase, right? So if the price of iPads start going down, more people are going to start buying more iPads. So price is going to act as an obstacle for buyers and keeps them from being able to buy everything that they want. You'll have what's called the income effect. So this occurs as lower price increases the purchasing power of income. So this enables consumers to buy more at a lower price without having to reduce consumption of other goods. Okay, question two. The idea of the law of demand as applied to electric cars assumes which of the following to be constant. I'll give you a chance to pause this and answer it. So this is going to be B here, price of gasoline cars. And question three, other things being equal, the law of demand suggests that as, all right, get a chance to pause this and answer it. An answer is going to be C. The price of iPads decreases, the quantity demanded will increase. So law of diminishing marginal utility. So this is going to refer to the decrease in added satisfaction that results as one consumes additional units of good or service. So this would be in the last couple chapters we talked about eating donuts, right? So the fifth donut doesn't taste as good as the first one. So in this example, the second Big Mac yields less extra satisfaction than the first, so the price must be lower to make up for less utility. All right, so if you were to go to McDonald's or any restaurant, sometimes let's say Big Mac is 250, but if you have like a combo meal for two of them, it might be 450, right? Something cheaper, right? Because in essence, sometimes the second Big Mac doesn't taste as good as the first one, but you may be willing more to buy it if it's cheaper than the first one. You have what's called the substitution effect. So this is when a lower price gives an incentive to substitute the lower price good for the now relatively higher price goods. So if you like Dr. Pepper, but now Coke is cheaper, you will substitute Dr. Pepper with Coke due to the price, right? So maybe you're on a budget. If something's cheaper, you're going to purchase the cheaper one. So this is going to be the demand curve. So it's going to illustrate a inverse relationship between price and quantity. Now the downward slope indicates a lower quantity at a higher price and a higher quantity at a lower price, reflecting the law of demand. So inverse means as the price is lowering, quantity demand is going to be increasing. So here we can see that as the price starts to fall, people are going to start buying more things. Relatively summed up, that's generally what this means. As the price increases, people start cutting back. So in order for a lot of companies to get stuff out, right, they still start to lower their price. Now, a change only in the price will result in a movement along the demand curve. So in order to go from these points here, there has to be a change in price. All right, so this is the market demand. If there are 3 buyers in the market for gasoline for this example, we add up the quantity demanded from each customer at each price, and we can get from and that's how we get the individual demand for the market. Now the market demand is going to be the horizontal summation of the individual demand curves of all the consumers in the market. So at a price of $3, we have the 3 individual curves here. So Joe is willing to buy 35 gallons at $3. Jen is willing to buy 39 gallons at $3. And Jay is willing to buy 26 gallons at $3. So we add all those quantities up, we get 100. So we could say for the market, there would be 100 gallons sold at $3, right? And this table here shows just the different dollar amounts for each one. Okay, question 4 here. This table shows the weekly demand for hamburgers in a market where there are just 3 buyers. At a price of $6, the weekly market quantity demanded for the hamburger is. So weekly market demand is at $6, as stated in the question. So we have a price right here, 6. So we're just going to add up buyers 1, which is 7, buyer 2, which is 4, and buyer 3, which is 6. That's all they're demanded. And we're going to get 17. So the answer here will be A. Okay, so we can have what's called changes in demand. And this is the part of the video where it might get just a little bit confusing. I'm going to do my best to explain it. So change the demand for gasoline will be brought about by a change in one or more of the determinants of demand. We'll go over those in a second. So an increase in demand is shown as a shift of demand curve to the right, as from D1 to D2. And then a decrease in demand is shown as a shift to the left, so D1 to D3. Now A to B, remember, is just going to be a change in price of the product. This is shown by a movement from one point to another and point of the demand curve. So if you were, let's say you were going to go purchase, you're going to Starbucks, and you're deciding between tea and coffee, right? You'll see that here coming up in a second. Let's say there are perfect substitutes for you, right? So you can drink one or the other. So you walk in the store, and you see that the price of coffee has gone up. Well, and so since the price of coffee has gone up, your demand in that moment is going to decrease for coffee, right? Because you're going to buy the cheapest option. So you're going to have a shift left in demand, right? So the demand curve is kind of like you in a way. So you shift left because you don't want that anymore. And then you notice tea, maybe tea's the same price, or maybe a little cheaper, cheaper than what it was last week when you walked in. So since it's cheaper, you're going to have a new increase in demand for that tea, right? Now, if you were just going in there necessarily to buy coffee and maybe the price changed and it cut back, you and everyone else would be like, well, I'm not going to buy coffee today, right? So that's how you go from B to A. But that's kind of how, to kind of picture this starting out, anything to the right would be good, anything to the left is bad. Kind of try and picture yourself in this curve. So if you like something, it goes up. You don't like something, it goes down. All right, so determinants. So these are things that shift the entire demand curve left or right, causing demand to change. Now, when most consumers experience a favorable change in demand, this will increase, and an unfavorable change will decrease. So a lot of people like Apple, a lot of people like how Apple iMessages show read receipts. Now, if they took that away, or if Android added that feature, then the taste would potentially change. Now, more buyers in the market for a good, the demand increases. Fewer buyers, demand decreases. Now, there are more buyers in the phone market, as everyone needs a phone, compared to not a lot in the pager market. You can also have a change in income. So normal goods are goods that we buy more as our income increases. So most of the goods that we buy are normal goods. And we are going to buy fewer normal goods when income decreases. And then you'll have inferior goods. So these are goods we buy more of as our income decreases. So we buy fewer inferior goods as our income increases. So as income goes up, you buy less ramen noodles. When income goes down, you buy more ramen noodles, right? So if you're someone, for a normal good, if you're someone who likes to go to the movies, right? So maybe you go to 20 movies a year, and then your income goes up that year, and you go to 25 movies. But then the next year, maybe you get laid off, and you only go to 10 movies, right? Because you can't afford it. That would be a normal good, right? So you went to more, and you bought more as your income went up, and then you went to less as your income went down. Inferior goods, same way. So ramen noodles is a good example. So maybe that time when you were laid off, you started buying more ramen noodles, right? Because you do your pension. But when you got a new job and your income went up, you don't ever eat ramen noodles again. Okay, so you can have substitute goods. So these are goods that are used in place of one another, kind of like the coffee and tea we were talking about earlier. Now, a perfect substitute is going to be a good that we use in place of the other without any loss of satisfaction, right? So when I stated that when you went in the Starbucks and you decided tea or coffee, there was no difference. You're willing to buy one or the other, just depending on price. So if the price of one good increases, demand for a substitute increases. Now, if the price of one good decreases, the demand for its substitute decreases. I went ahead and just put this here for you. So this would be like some example would be like Nike, Reebok shoes, tea and coffee, McDonald's and Burger King. All right, so if the price of McDonald's goes up, your demand for that is going to decrease, and then you will start to have an increase for Burger King. Then you can have what's called complementary goods. So these are goods that we consume jointly. It isn't beneficial to have one without its complement. So when the price of one complement increases, demand for the other complement decreases. When the price of one complement decreases, the demand for the other one increases. So this would be like smartphones and SIM cards, bread and butter, a tennis racket and a tennis ball. Now when the price of coffee goes up, the demand for the cream goes down, right? So you went to Starbucks, the coffee was too expensive, and so what does that affect, right? So that also affects other things outside of coffee. So maybe the company who sells cream, they're also not going to get a customer because you didn't purchase any coffee, so the demand for the cream goes down. Now when the movie ticket prices go down, the demand for popcorn goes up. So since movie tickets decrease, you went to the movies. Popcorn, which is obviously complementary good to that, you're going to buy more of that, right? Um, so some situations here, you can kind of think that, uh, like this tennis racket and tennis ball, they might not be sold by the same company, right? But if the tennis rackets start going up, that directly affects the demand for the tennis ball, and the people who make tennis balls don't necessarily have any say so in how that affects them, right? Just because of another product from another company went up. All right, so I went ahead, I made this for y'all, just kind of help it, just to help a little bit more because I know substitute and complementary get a little confusing. So let's say you prefer to drink Coke, which is $1.50 a can, but then next week you go to the vending machine and it's $2.50 a can. But you notice that the Dr. Pepper stayed the same at $1.50. So now you'll be more inclined to substitute Dr. Pepper for Coke now due to the price. Okay, let's say you're at the grocery store trying to decide between buying hot dogs or hamburgers for your cookout. So you notice that hot dogs are $5 a package. You know hamburgers are $5 a package. And then you look at the hamburger buns; those are $3.50. And then you look at the hot dog buns are $3.50, and the hamburger buns are $1.50. So now, due to the hot dog buns costing more than hamburger buns, your demand for the hot dogs now decreased, right? So due to the increase in price of hot dog buns, you no longer want the hot dogs, so your demand decreased. So you're going to substitute those hot dogs for the hamburgers for your cookout, all just because of one product from one for the companies is cheaper, right? Okay, so question 5. Smartphones and SIM cards are. I'll give you a chance to pause this and answer it. So answer is going to be B, complementary goods. Now, if consumers expect the future price of a product to be higher, they increase their current demand for the product. If consumers expect the price of a product to be lower, they decrease their current demand for the product. Now, kind of one situation here. It's like again like Black Friday, right? So I have a friend. He specifically shops on Black Friday to get better deals. So he'll wait, right, and he'll increase his demand down way later when the price is right. Now, consumers expect their future income to rise. They increase purchases now, and this generally happens to a bunch of people as soon as they graduate college, right? So they go from making maybe $12 an hour to their new jobs over 20, and they'll go buy a car, right? And so as soon as they get that job, maybe they're not starting for 2 weeks, but they'll go purchase, right? So as soon as income start to rise, they generally start making purchases now. Now, if consumers believe their income will be less, they reduce their demand for some products. Okay, so we're going to hit the supply part of this video. So supply is going to be a scheduled curve that shows the various amounts of a product that producers are willing and able to make available for sale at each of a series of possible prices during a specified period of time. Now, to be a part of the supply of a good, producers have to be willing and able to produce the good. So you'll have a supply schedule graph or supply curve, similar to demand. So in creating supply, we are assuming that the only factor that causes firms to produce more or less is going to be the price. It is assumed that all other factors that influence the amount that firms will produce are constant. So market supply is created by summoning the individual firm supply curves. Okay, law of supply. So other things being equal, as the prices rise, the quantity supplied rises, and as the prices falls, the quantity supplied fall. Now, producers are willing to produce and sell more of their product at a higher price than at a low price. There is a direct relationship between price and quantity supplied. Now, given product costs at a higher price means greater profits and thus incentive to increase the quantity supplied. All right, sorry about that. I was just making sure my video was recording. Now, beyond some level of output, producers usually encounter increasing cost per added unit of output. All right, so this is going to be the supply curve, right? So as you can see, similar but opposite of the demand curve, right? So the demand curve was obviously sloping downwards here, where the supply curve is going up. So demand is going to be U, but supply is going to be the business. So other things being equal, producers will offer more of a product for sale as its prices rises, and less of the product for sale as its prices falls. So as okay, so producers are going to be wanting obviously to sell at a higher price, right? Because the higher they sell a price, the more money they make. Where consumers want to buy at a lower price because they don't have to spend as much, right? So that's kind of why we have this inverse relationship. So all about making money, and then all about not spending money. So similar moving points on the demand curve. To move from point to point, there must be a change in price. Okay, question 6. Assume that supply curve for product L is upsloping. If the price of L rises from $1.75 to $2, I'll give you a chance to pause this and answer it. So that answer here is going to be B. So a large quantity of L will be supplied, right? So remember, they're trying to make money, right? So if you start seeing prices rise, that is a goal, make more money. Okay, changes in supply. So similar to changes in demand, and again, this is a second part of the video where it kind of gets complicated with moving up and down. So a change in one more of the determined supply is going to cause a shift, and we'll go over the determinants in a second. So an increase in supply is shown as a rightward shift, and then a decrease in supply is going to be a leftward shift. So one of the examples I like to use, so supply, one of the determinants is going to be suppliers in the market, right? All right, so when I was a freshman in college at WT, there was only one coffee shop, and that was Starbucks on campus, right? So this would be the market, right? So there's just one supplier. And then going into my sophomore year, they put in a coffee shop in the library, right? So what happened that second year? Well, since a new supplier entered the market, you have an increase in supply of people available. And then as you can see here, the prices actually decrease, right? Well, why would that be? Well, since there's competition now, you got to sell for a cheaper thing, or you've got to decrease your price, right? So if you owned your own coffee shop, and you had someone moving across the street from you, and if they sell their coffee cheaper than you, like, what are you going to do, right? You might have to decrease your price, right? Now, now going into my junior year, so let's say the market resets, okay? So this is going to be the new market now because the market resetted. So going into my third year, we have 2 coffee shops. So this will be my junior year. Now my junior year, WT actually put coffee in what they call the Helk. If you ever go there, it's just where all the computers are, and they were Keurig cups. They were free coffee. I wasn't gonna pass that up. I don't care for expensive coffee. And so technically that is new coffee entering the market, right? So we would have a new increase in supply. Okay, now going into my fourth year, so we're going to reset the market. We currently have 3 suppliers of coffee. So due to Starbucks, for one, being a brand name, and then free coffee downstairs, the library actually went out of business, right? Or the coffee shop in the library went out. So what happened when they went out? You have a decrease in supply, right? So now you shift left. All right, so determinant. So a change in resource price. So if resource prices go up, supply decreases. If resource prices go down, supply increases. So that's just everything going into your product, right? So for phones, there's obviously a lot of inputs that go into that. If any of those go up, then the phone's going to go up, or the price for the phone's going to go up. Okay, a change in technology. So if technology increases, supply increases. If we use less efficient technology, your supply will decrease. So again, I believe I mentioned this in the last video. So if you own a sewing company and you are sewing by hand, you can only make so much supply. But if you change your technology and buy a sewing machine, then you would start increasing your supply. Or maybe you already own a sewing machine and it breaks, right? Now you're hand sewing, then your supply is going to decrease. Now just note that the location of the product supply curve will depend on the production technology, right? So in essence, you can only produce what you're able to make. Now, if your taxes are increased, your supply will decrease. If taxes are decreased, supply increases, and that essentially just means you don't have as much money as you could to buy more things, right? So if your funds go down, you're not able to buy as much. Your supply is going to fall. Now, if the price of another good that the producer could produce with the same resources rises, the supply decreases for the product they are currently producing. So if you are producing basketballs or volleyballs, you're going to produce whatever is doing the best. Okay, question 7. All right, so the location of the product supply curve depends on. All right, you get a chance to pause this and answer it. So the answer will be A, production technology. Now, producers expect that the price of the product they're producing will be higher in the future. They cut back on current supply and supply decreases. Now, if producers expect the price will be lower in the future, they increase current supply to take advantage of the current higher price. Now, if the number of sellers increases, supply increases. Economic profits in the market draw producers from less profitable markets into this market. So if you're making money, people will come. Now, if the number of sellers decreases, supply decreases. Economic losses in the market causes producers to leave. So before Uber and Lyft, only taxis controlled the market. Now, when those apps became available, there was going to be more supply of taxi services. Okay, question 8. Which of the following would shift the supply curve for beef? All right, get a chance to pause this and answer it. So it's going to be B here. So an increase in the number of cattle ranches, right? So the only way to shift the supply curve, you would need an increase or decrease in the number of ranches available. All right, so equilibrium is going to occur where the demand and supply curve are going to intersect. Now, the equilibrium price is going to be also known as the market clearing price. So graphically, the equilibrium price and quantity are where the supply and demand curves intersect. Now, at equilibrium, the markets are economically efficient. You can have what's called a surplus. So this will be prices above the equilibrium. There is an excess quantity supplied or surplus, and you can have what's called a shortage. So this would be prices below the equilibrium, and there would be an excess in quantity demanded. And then rationing function of prices. This is the ability of competitive forces, supply and demand, to establish a price, where buying and selling decisions are created. So relatively, rationing function of prices is just your price moving up and down. So at equilibrium, the markets are economic efficient, which is going to be at $3 at 7,000 gallons, right? So this is where your demand curve meets your supply curve. Now the shortage of gasoline is going to be at 7,000 gallons at $2. So you have a price here at 2. And then, sorry, the surplus is going to be caused by above equilibrium prices at 6,000 gallons at $4. Now, when there's a surplus lowering, the price will help get back to equilibrium. And if there's a shortage, then raising the price will get back to equilibrium. All right. So this graph isn't necessarily my favorite example, but I'm going to kind of show you an easy way to read this in a way. So if you're going to start left to right, so whatever curve you hit first is what's going on. All right. So starting from left to right, above the equilibrium, we are going to hit the demand curve first. So this would be we'll use gasoline for this example as well. So this would be, hey, we are demanding 4,000 gallons of gasoline, and then this would be the market saying, well, we gave out 10,000, right? So obviously there's way more gallons of gasoline than what people need. So you would have a surplus of 6,000 gallons, right? So we take the 10,000 minus the 4,000. That's how we get the 6. And then starting down here, going left from right, we hit the supply curve first, right? So this would be all suppliers saying, hey, we gave out 4,000 gallons of gasoline. And this is the people saying, whoa, we needed 11,000. What happened? So the people needed 11, but the companies gave 4, right? So there's obviously a major shortage. So we take that 11 minus the 4, and that's how we get the 7,000. All right, so productive efficiency. So this is producing goods in the least costly way. So sellers that don't achieve the least cost combination of inputs will be unprofitable and have difficulty competing in the market, right? So that's a big reason why all our products are kind of made cheaply, right? Now, allocate efficiency. So this is a combination of goods that of goods most highly valued by society. Now, society wants many things, so we allocate to everything. So we want streaming services, but we also want healthcare, sports, food, and everything else in between. Now, allocate efficiency requires that there be productive efficiency. Productive efficiency can occur without allocate efficiency, though. Now, an increase in demand results in an increase in price and an increase in quantity exchanged. So, when Netflix and Hulu finally became popular, they will experience this, right? So, with the shift, right, you can have an increase in price as more people are going to demand it. Now, a decrease in demand is going to result in decreases in prices and the quantity exchange. So, after Netflix and Hulu got popular, cable series services experience this. So, when my dad, uh, back in the day, sounds crazy. Um, but right around the time Netflix and Netflix started really popping off, uh, he had DirecTV, right? And he would threaten them year after year after year that he was going to cancel, say I don't want this anymore. Why would I pay for this? I pay back then it was like $8 for Netflix. Um, and they're like, well, we'll decrease our price for you. We'll decrease our price for you. We'll give you Red Zone, which is football half off. They were doing relatively anything they could to keep him on, and it worked for like 3 years, right? But eventually they cut it. Uh, but that's what happened, right? So as these got popular, cable experienced a decrease. As Netflix and Hulu is getting popular, obviously their band's going up, and that's Netflix is I don't know like $15 an hour, $16 an hour, right? Um, where I mean I can remember it being like $8. Okay, all right. So an increase in supply will result in a decrease in price and an increase in the quantity exchanged. So let's say you are a coffee bean supplier and you find a new technique to increase the amount you harvest. Then you will have more supply and you can sell at a lower cost to sell more of your coffee bean to make a high profit. All right, so maybe all right, so you're able to harvest more. You're going to sell here for cheaper, but also a better example was like the one we used with the coffee shop. So as more coffee shops enter the market, you got to compete. So you got to start down here. Or you got to sell for a cheaper price. Now, a decrease in supply results in increase in price and decrease in quantity exchanged. So if you're a coffee bean supplier and there's a drought, then your supply will decrease. And due to the limited inventory, the prices will go up. Right. So obviously, if you don't have anything to put out there, you're gonna have to charge a higher price to kind of keep your inventory. Where if you're the market and maybe you see that the coffee shop across from you closed down, well, if it closed down, then you can start selling for a higher price, right? And no one's gonna stop you. They're gonna buy your coffee. Okay, this is question 9. And this question is a little tricky. Um, Now, in this diagram to the left, the subscript 1 is referred to the initial position, and then subscript 2 refers to the final position after the curve shifts. In which diagram will we see a shortage at the initial price after the indicated curve has shifted? So I went in here and I labeled these new and initial. I don't believe your homework's not going to have this, um, but to me it's a little easier. But new is obviously the D1, and then the initial is going to be the D1 with the subscript 1, and then new is going to be the D2 after it shifts. The confusing part of this question is after it shifts is so once you look at the initial point of the graph. So the thing you can do is I'm going to draw my curve that's not shifted, right? So the supply curve has not moved, and then this is my new demand curve. So we are no longer worried about this demand curve, but just where it initially started. So again, start from left to right. Start from left to right, we hit the supply curve first, and then we hit the demand curve, right? So they put out this much, but we needed this much. So in that scenario, we're going to have a shortage. And then starting over here, the supply curve didn't move. We're only worried about this demand curve because it moved, but just at the initial point of the original curve. So start from left to right. We hit the demand curve first, supply curve second. So this is how much was demanded. This is how much was supplied. So in that scenario, we're going to have a surplus. And then just moving through this one kind of quickly. In this scenario, we're going to have a surplus as well. This is how much was demanded. This is how much was supplied. Because now we're these bottom two are the demand curves that don't move. And then just this one, moving here quick. This one will be a shortage. Starting from left to right, we hit the supply curve first, and then the demand curve second. So in that scenario, we're going to have a shortage. Okay, question 10 here. Which of the diagrams illustrates the effect of a decrease in income on the market for secondhand clothing? All right, I'll give you a chance to pause this and answer it. So that answer here is going to be B. All right, so even though you have a decrease in income, your secondhand clothing is essentially an inferior good, right? So as your income decreases, maybe you start going shop at like Ross more rather than like the mall. So in that situation, your demand for inferior clothing is increasing. Okay, so question 11. Assume a drought in the Great Plains reduces the supply of wheat, noting that the wheat is a basic ingredient in the production of bread. If potatoes are a consumer substitute for bread, we would expect the price of wheat to. I get a chance to pause this and answer it. So this answer here is going to be B. So the price would rise, the supply of bread would decrease, and demand for potatoes would increase. All right, so we can have what's called a price ceiling. So these are maximum legal prices that can be charged on a good and is set below the equilibrium price. Now, this sets on goods that are necessities, but the equilibrium price is so high that many people are unable to purchase the item. So a shortage is going to be caused when a price ceiling is, when there is a price ceiling. Uh, Ignore that is. The shortages often lead to black markets. Goods is going to be sold at a higher price ceiling. Now, price ceilings distort the efficient allocation of resources. And then price floors. So this is minimum legal price fixed by the government. Prices are set above the market price. This causes surpluses and is corrected by reducing the price of the product in question while increasing the quantity demanded. So here that surplus is shown by the horizontal distance between QS and QD. So QS, QD. But note that price floor and price ceilings both just interfere with their rationing function of prices. So again, rationing function prices is just the price moving up and down. So this is a price ceiling example. So in 2012, after Hurricane Sandy hit the Northeast United States, New York and New Jersey set price ceilings on basic goods such as bottled water and gasoline. Doing so prevented price gouging and allowed people to afford these essentials during a difficult time. Now, in 2008, for instance, the Mexican government placed controls on more than 150 basic food items as food prices were rising so rapidly that people were protesting. And then a price floor example. The government used price floors to regulate the cost of alcohol. The assumption is if these beverages were too affordable, people would consume more of them, thus leading to more significant health problems. And then a price floor for fishing license controls fishing activities to protect fish populations. Okay, question 12. The market system automatically corrects a surplus condition in a competitive market buy. I'll get a chance to pause this and answer it. So the answer is going to be C. So reducing the price of the product in question while increasing the quantity demanded. Question 13. Price floors and price ceilings both. I'll give you a chance to pause this and answer it. So the answer is going to be D. Interfere with the rationing function of prices. Okay, question 14. Suppose that demand is represented by columns 3 and 2. And then the demand is going to be represented by columns 3 and 2. So your price and quantity demanded. And the supply is going to be represented by 3 and 5. So your price and quantity supplied. And then the price is going to be set at $10. So column 2 is our demand, column 5 is our supply, and we are looking at a price of $10. So at that, our demand is 85 and our supply is 65. So there is going to be a shortage of 20 units. So your answer here is going to be A. If it was equal to each other, obviously be 85 and 85. or 65 and 65. Okay, question 15 here. This is a quick math problem. I kind of throw this at the end and just gonna kind of walk you through it. It's kind of a little confusing. It's a little some algebra to it. But the demand for commodity X is represented by the equation P equals 30 minus 0.2 Q, and supplied by the equation of P equals 12 plus 0.2 Q. The equilibrium price for X is. All right, so just walk you through this real quick. So put them equal to each other. We're going to minus 12 from both sides. And then after we minus 12 from both sides, we're going to add 0.2 to both sides. Or sorry, add 0.2 over here to both sides. And then we get 0.4 Q equals 18. And then we're going to divide both sides by 0.4. And that will give us Q equals 45. And then you can put 45 into either equation. You'll get the same answer. I went ahead and just did the first one, and we get 21. All right, that is going to be the end of chapter 3.